Okay, I'm welcoming Carrie Copley. Is Copley how you say your last name?
Copley.
Copley. See, yeah, I should have asked you ahead of time. Darn it. And I bet people do that all the time, don't
All the
they?
time. Yep.
Yeah, forever. Believe me, I understand having a mispronounceable name. My name is pronounced like the word Paris, and everybody is like, how does that work? Don't know.
Yeah.
But here we are. It doesn't actually. So I'm welcoming Carrie Copley to the podcast, and Carrie, we've never met in person. I only know you from your video where you applied to speak.
Yep.
So we have, so this is it. Whenever I tell people like, oh, this is how I connected with that person, here we are. Tell me, how did you learn about U conferences, and how did this come into your radar to speak at a conference?
Great question, because I heard about it last year from a client of mine who said, this would be really fun. You should go to this. Maybe we could go together. And it was at a time that I couldn't make it. And I don't know what happened because of the pandemic. But then this year, once again, the same person reached out to me and said, Carrie, you should sign up to be a speaker. You should apply to be a speaker. So I courageously went out and did the video and filled out the stuff to become a speaker.
Very cool. Most of our speakers, have found us by attending a conference, and I wouldn't say it's a requirement to have attended a conference before, but we certainly look at that because and you'll see after you're there, are so different. But we also want to keep, diverse content, and we want to keep I hate when I say that all the time. I'm like smacking myself. I'm doing it out loud. I'm supposed to do that in my head. Okay. We want to keep diverse content and new people coming, and continue to attract people from different areas. So you don't live near here, near Cedar Rapids. You're a couple hours away in the Ames area, right?
Right.
So where did you grow up? Are you living where you grew up? Did you grow up somewhere else?
No, I actually grew up in Southern Iowa, Burlington.
Oh, okay.
For most of my years, and moved to Ames and for college, left Ames, came back, left Ames and came back. And now I've been here for almost 30 years.
Okay. So you're also a Cyclone, which, wow. So here we are with beef right away.
Yeah.
Hawkeye fans are such jerks, right?
Yeah. I have them in my family, so I deal with it.
Gosh darn it. I really do mean that in all good fun, but I know every Hawkeye and Cyclone fan is like, is she going to say something about that or not? We really loved your audition, and we're excited, but tell me we're going to talk about that in a second, but tell me a little bit more, like, what's home life like for you? What did you go to college for? And what did your early career look like?
Great question. So I went to college to become a teacher. That ended very quickly.
Why?
I hated the classes. They were boring. And I knew I felt called to be a change maker, to do something. And I learned about social work. So I switched gears, which it's still helping. And I became, most of my early career, my first 15, 18 years were in the social work field.
Like through DHS or programs like that, or
nonprofits. I worked with a lot of programs with children who struggled with mental illness because of abuse.
Oh, wow.
I've worked with women who were struggling financially, and then I worked with people who were chemically dependent.
So a lot of trauma.
All trauma, yes.
Mm-hmm. Which I suppose most social work has trauma related to it. How does that affect you when you're working in it? I've always wondered that. Like, can you separate it?
Yes, sort of. You have to have
question mark.
Looking back, I'm not sure I did a real good job because it did impact my life. And I think the better you know yourself and your own triggers, probably the better it would help you be a social worker, which
Sure.
Back then they really didn't know about. Like, you got to be a healthy you so that you can be healthy for others. And social work oftentimes attracts people who have had their own struggles
to want to help
others. Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't have a prior struggle, so I got my struggle as I was a social worker.
Oh, that's funny. So how long did you work in social work?
Probably 15 to 18 years.
Oh, a long time. A
Yeah.
long time. Okay, so like, I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but I love, and I say it all the time. I wonder if my younger audience understands what I'm saying, but I'll be like, okay, you were a social worker and yada yada yada. Now you're a published author and a life coach. So like something happened
Yep.
between there. What like what's your yada yada yada?
Well, my yada, yada, yada is I just got burnt out of the social work field, and it wasn't the money. I got tired of hearing. I actually became an administrator within the social work field, and I just really got burnt out of the complaints about the money. It's like you went to college, you pretty much knew that this was not going to be a career that you were going to make money, you were going to make an impact. And just all the politics around social work and which there's a lot.
I'm sure.
I won't even go there, but there's a lot. And I decided that I was remarried and pregnant with my last child, and really thinking, what do I want to do with my life? What do I want to do with my life? Because my husband really wanted me to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, oh, I've never done that. I was a fast paced. I worked really well in social work because I thrived on crisis. I could think through things. I could remain calm and just go. So I was thinking, what can I do with my life? What can I do? And through that process, I discovered coaching, which I didn't even really know it existed outside of sports.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I've been talking a lot lately about, when I think about growing up, and I grew up in the 80s and graduated in the 90s, born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, graduated in the 90s. The idea of self-development was very hokey.
yeah,
Nobody really did that. And it was really just, well, if you want to get somewhere, go pick up a broom and get to work,
yeah,
go to your job on your first day, work harder than everybody else, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. It's all about impressing people, compare yourself to others, show up, and go home and cry in a bottle. That sounds fine.
yeah, yeah,
Or whatever you cry in, a
yeah,
jar of peanut butter, a casino,
yeah, exactly.
whatever, deal with your life later. You've got work to do. So when I was introduced to self-development, probably not until, honestly, till 2015, as a grown adult, I didn't really know what to do with that information.
Right.
And it still seemed hokey, go to work, do your job.
That we have a choice of how we think and do and be, that we have some control of that.
Yeah, I would say my mindset before that was very much like everything happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And everything was happening to me. And when I knew people had life coaches, like when Oprah was probably the first person I ever heard about a life coach from. And I remember thinking, well, that must just be something rich people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you go to did you get any training? How did you approach this idea?
Well, I found life coaching really before a lot of people did stuff online. I found an online program out of California, and I got certified more in career coaching because everybody hates their job. And I thought, well, I'm going to become a career coach. What the program did not do a good job of is talking about you're an entrepreneur. And I was not confident in my skills. I had a young child at home, and I just thought, I can't do this yet. So it was just through a process that I really wanted to become a coach because I wanted to work with clients who are not court ordered. That's kind of my joke that I say to people, like, I want people who really want to make an impact, and not that people in social work didn't want it. There were some wonderful people,
of course,
but usually when you are really intentional about seeking out somebody and you have something in the game, you have skin in the game, like your finances in your life, and you're saying you're doing this, it helps you take that step to following through. So that's kind of how I got into it.
So what year are we talking here? What year did you start, or did you get certified?
Well, I was probably certified, I'm going to guess maybe 2005. and I didn't follow through. I started working in like training and development. Um, and I could use my coaching skills in that,
Right.
but I wasn't a coach. And then one time I was in a job, and it's not that I didn't like my job. I actually at this job was doing business coaching for about an hour a day. And I loved that aspect of the day, loved it. The rest of the day, I didn't.
Hated it.
And then one day I just said, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. I'm going to follow through. So I actually quit, got certified as a life coach, went back through another certification because I thought I just don't want to focus on. We can't, if you have a career and you have a life, they
Right.
merge.
Right.
You can't get away from your business and your life. And so it was really helping people come together and find balance, because balance looks different for every single person.
So did you find then, and do you find now that you were working with people that were kind of in the same, like kind of like you, like you know, a mom and struggling with what they wanted to do, knowing they wanted more, like all of those things? Was that kind of the kind of clients that you were
Yes,
working with? So going through the journey yourself.
exactly. They say you coach who you are, because I was always struggling to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
I was that person who'd pick up the broom and work really hard and work my way up and play the game, and thought that success meant that you were moving up in the company and that your pay represented that, your car, your house, your family.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And you know, we're raising our kids differently now, and I see some like complaints about that in the world, like, oh, you know, back in my day, and I agree that back in my day things were different, but I also know that our children and the next generation are learning off of our mistakes, and why do we want them to go through that same
Yeah.
thing? You know, it takes a lot of guts to say I want to live my life based off of impact. That it's not it's not comfortable.
Yeah.
Sounds egotistical or something.
Yeah. And it's not just impact. It's, um, when I quit, I really had to almost, from up here when you're like, oh, and you're going 100 miles an hour and you're having physical symptoms of stress,
Mm-hmm.
but you're thriving at the same time on that. Like, I am so important that I am needed here, here, and here. You actually have to come down that, from that high. And I would never have called it that before, but you're just so busy being busy, and your whole identity is based on, your self-worth is based on who you are at work.
Yeah. Your
And that,
title. Yeah,
yeah,
your title. And if you don't get the next title or the promotion. And I think, you know, the fear of making a big career change in it, or leaving the corporate world or going after a big job, is the security that the title and the salary and the benefits and the insurance and, you know, the 401k and the life insurance, you know, all of those things keep a person very secure. And we've learned that we can't have those things if we're working for ourselves. I
right,
think also, you know, you hear people tell the story, oh, I was tired of my corporate job.
yeah,
And so I walked away and I started this company and now I'm here. And their yada, yada, yada is it's always ugly. Like it is never pretty. And the first thing that happens, I think, when you leave whatever whatever you thought you were supposed to do to whatever you dream of doing, you realize very quickly you'll fail. And especially when you've been a high achiever, like what? I mean, every time you'll fail. And it's like, then you say, oh, well, I'm just really bad at this. I'm
yeah.
not meant to be these things. Is that what you feel like all of your clients are dealing with?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I wouldn't say all of them. I would say it's just a struggle from who the world says we should be and who we feel we should be, and finding peace with who you are supposed to be, and
Yeah.
being okay with that.
Well, and especially when, you know, you've got dependents, you've got, you know, you don't want your husband to take on all the burden. You've got kids that need and want things and you want to provide for them. You want them to enjoy their life. You want them to look back on their childhood and be like, mom was here and we got to do soccer and, all of the things that you want to be and do for your kids as a mother. And so that all takes money. So which is it? Which career do I go after? And it's certainly not less work being an entrepreneur.
No.
So, how many kids do you have and how old are they now?
Well, I have an interesting family. So I have
Great.
I have 4 kids. The 3 oldest are 28 to 36. My oldest I adopted. I was a foster parent for 10 years.
Wow.
And my youngest, I've been divorced, and my youngest is 16, and of course he still lives at home and just has a much different life because, I parented through that really busy phase,
Mm-hmm.
and I see kind of what I missed. So that was,
sure.
that was part of the blessing of becoming an entrepreneur and doing it differently, to put my focus to not be overly busy. I don't need to make this amount of money so that I can have them signed up in all these sports where I'm spending my time taking them here, there, and everywhere. I don't.
You are not joking.
I don't buy into that game. That my identity is not in my child's intelligence or athletic ability, and so, but that's hard because parents are.
Oh, the pressure is real.
Parents talk about that.
Yeah, the pressure is real. And I know exactly, I have a sister that's 13 years younger than I am. My family is actually exactly like yours. There's 3 older ones from marriage number 1. And then there's 13 years between me and the youngest. There's 5 years between me and the second youngest, and 13 between me and the very youngest. And we did grow up very differently. She has completely different parents than I did. She lucked out. She got I'm a hairstylist and she's a doctor. What the hell? Nothing wrong with hairstyling. I would not choose anything else. Yada, yada, yada. But, thank God she didn't come first. Can you imagine calling a doctor being like, Dad, I want to do hair?
I always tell my oldest kids I practiced.
You
get better as you keep doing it. You learn them what's important and what's not.
Yeah. And I think as a parent, or you learn both ways, but I subscribe the same way you do. I have a really hard time revolving my life around the kids' schedules, and there has to be a balance there because they're going to leave and they are not going to give a shit that they left.
Right.
These damn kids. So I think that's yeah. So, raising kids and going through all of that. And then, so I didn't really, you still have a teenager at home and a 16-year-old. I'm very jealous of that because my teenagers are just 12 and 14 and I'm very excited for them to drive.
Yes. Isn't that a blessing? Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're doing that. You driving yourself somewhere sounds fabulous.
You stop at the grocery store for me on the way back.
Yes, ma'am. That sounds great. So I think it's also like a great example to your kids, wherever they end up in your life, to watch you make a change and to watch you focus on yourself. Because how do you teach them to take care of themselves if they never see you take care of yourself? I think that's really hard. It's catch-22 for mothers. How do I give everything to them and anything to myself is sometimes the real challenge.
Yeah.
So during your whole career and moving into all of this that you do, you've written a book too. That's on my bucket list. It has started. It is going nowhere. But I would love to know about your book and approaching that process and what it's about.
So actually, the first year of my divorce, I had a powerful desire to write a book and tell the story and warn other women. It would have been a very revengeful book. And I always laughed because my ex-husband was the writer. And I thought, gosh, darn it, I need him to write this book about him.
Wow.
So anyway, it didn't work out that way. I never wrote a book.
Probably good for you.
Oh, I know. It would have been, it would have been ugly.
Jerry Springer would have loved it though. So, you could have gone on a great book tour.
I could have. But 3 years ago, I just had a really strong desire in my heart that I needed to write my story. And I was scared to death. But here was the issue. I coach people. I tell people, if you have a big dream, like you have a dream in your gut, it's there for a purpose. That's part of who you are. That's part of your calling. And if I truly believe that about other people, shouldn't I believe it about myself? But and thankfully I understood the mindset, like the mind game of the stories that we tell ourselves. I had so many reasons why I couldn't write the book.
Well, nobody would want to read it, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So I finally got to the point. I went to a conference about a seminar about how to write a book. And that finally gave me the courage that this book was not supposed to be, the intention of the book was not to be a bestseller, like on the New York Times list. That, take it off of that. And
Well, that's for your 10th book, right?
Yeah, yes, I should get more confident. But the whole purpose was, it was more of a branding about who I am and sharing my story. And I thought, if I put a date up, so here's the big secret, Kendra. I put a date up above my computer.
Oh,
where
no. Where you could see it?
Yep, every day, December 31st, 5 p.m. I think it was 2016. And every day I would tell my husband, when we get up in the morning, we just would share our goals or, commitments for the day. And I would say, I'm going to work on the book for an hour. I'm going to write 500 words, whatever it was, with my time schedule that day, I would commit to writing it. And I remember after the first 3 months, a couple months, I was just really, really, really struggling with it. And I didn't really understand writer's block, but it finally came together, and I finished the book early. I finished the book like 2 weeks early because I had that darn date staring at me.
I was going to ask you if you spent all of between Christmas and New Year's, like with a pen on fire. That's what I was picturing.
No, I think I was finished even before Christmas. The scariest thing is to send it off to have someone read it.
Mm. Oh, good. See, I thought the scariest thing was starting it.
No,
I'm glad it gets worse.
No, I had a college professor at Iowa State, and I don't remember his name because I was probably like 18 years old, but I could pick him out of a lineup. And I remember him talking about my writing. It's so boring. Where's your imagination? Get more creative. He just slammed me all the time. And I remember as a sassy teenager going up to him and saying, it is your topics that are so boring. That didn't go over well. But, he's like, no, it's your writing. And actually, so that's what was one of the head games that was going through me, is that I'm boring. I'm not creative. I lack imagination. But as I wrote, I began to kind of understand what he was talking about. He probably was not articulating to my 18-year-old self.
I'm sure your 18-year-old self was not open to that criticism either.
No.
I don't know. I mean, I don't really know about you, but I know at 18, I knew everything. And all these old people were so lame and stupid.
Yeah.
So.
And it stuck with me though, because I remember it like years later, that his words had an impact and made me doubt my own skill. So if I could ever figure out his name, I would send him my book.
They probably made you doubt your skills, but also in the end probably gave you what you needed to not write boring material.
Right.
It's both. I coach people with doing like live videos or YouTube videos. And it's like, when you're saying this, I'm like, gosh, I probably just killed somebody's psyche too many times. And I'm going to make a note to maybe try to say it different. But I'll be like, well, nobody's watching your videos because your videos are boring. You don't get to the point. And it's always hard to hear, but then the question becomes, how do I make it not boring? This is who I am. This is how I am. I don't know how to make that turn, but I guess if you're, it sounds like for you, just by the doing of it and knowing there was a huge possibility it could be boring, made you read it from a different perspective.
Right. And really, I stopped, I had to stop thinking about it. And from other people, and just think, if my family's the only one who reads this, I still accomplished my goal. And they still know they still are reading my story, which is, it's more of a parable. So part of it's true and part of it's not. Part of it's made up to help tie the story in, because, I didn't really go into a lot about my kids, and because that's their life and that's their story.
Right. Yeah, you have your own boundaries around that.
Yeah.
Am I putting nailing my ex-husband to the stake, or am I not? Like, I'm not, you decide that. But that's really good information for me. I'm taking this as a coaching call right now. So thank you. And I really will appreciate the not having an invoice. So that's great. But it's just, when you set out to write a book and people will say, oh, that's amazing, I can't wait to read it. Then your expectation goes, oh my God, if it's not good, what will they say? And then, and then you have this whole like, I'm boring thing happening. I know I'm not boring, but I also know I ramble. And, that can be hard. And then it's like, well, which part, so then it just becomes like a block, like maybe I'm not meant to write a book. And I am a writer, like writing's my gift. So, you would think that would make that journey easier. So it's really good information. And I think you could apply it to a lot of different goals, obviously, but that book writing goal is like one, it's like people that, do a marathon or run an Ironman or, do some big, not very many people are part of that club. So who did you send it off to read it? I'm so curious.
Well, so part of my issue was how to get it published.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a problem. Oh, don't go down that rabbit hole on the internet.
Yeah, exactly. So when I went to this conference, it was a book publishing business putting it on.
Oh, right on. They're looking for people to publish.
They're looking for people for like $45,000. They will help you write your book. And in fact, if you feel you're not a writer, they'll even write it for you for, a couple thousand extra. And I remember coming home from that conference and telling my husband, I figured it out.
Just need a mortgage.
I just need $45,000.
That's it.
And he was just like, no way in hell. And I was like, no, you don't understand. This is the only way I could do this. So I had a problem because you talked about like sharing your goal. At the conference, I posted, took a picture of the publisher and I'm going to write a book. Here's what I'm going to call it. And I got so much and I posted it on social media.
Yeah, you did.
And so I kid you not, I had people like, I was walking the dog one time and this lady rolls down her window. She's driving by me. Hey, how's the book going? And I thought,
oh my God, I hate it so bad because I did it too. I said it at a conference. I'm definitely writing a book. And like just last week, somebody said, oh, hey, how's that book thing going? I'm like, stop talking to me. What are you doing? I didn't give you permission for this.
So I'm a person of integrity. So I said, I'm going to do it. Gosh. So it was horrible and it was good at the same time, because I truly believe if you share something, it's going to help you be more accountable. So be careful what you share. Mm-hmm.
Or share more. I mean, I am thankfully I have such impulse that will make me share things. And I mean, I have accomplished some things that I should not have.
Yes, because you put it out there. Mm-hmm. So I think that is another reason why I actually accomplished it, because I did put it out there and I had people coming up to me all over the place asking me how the book was going. And I was really sulking in my own pity party because my husband said no to the $45,000. So how did I find
his fault anyway?
Yeah. So he just kept saying, write the book. You've got a really good idea and we'll worry about getting it published afterwards, which was really hard for me because I wanted to have that piece done before I wrote the book.
I mean, and maybe that's putting the cart before the horse, but in your mind that says, well, if I write it and I can't publish it, then it's not accomplished. So why bother?
Right. It's all mind game that you have to play with. But I did. So after I wrote it, I really started researching. I think I put it out on social media. I'm trying to publish a book. Anybody have suggestions? And kind of through that, I found somebody. I was going to go with a company in Minneapolis, but then right before all that happened, I got a referral for somebody in Des Moines. And I actually was able to meet with two people that used him as a publisher, book press publishing, and going through that process and meeting with him. And I just thought, this is someone local. I can physically go and see him and
Yeah.
through the process and kind of coaching me through the process. So that's how I found him.
Well, and I've heard that a lot of times it's not what you know, it's who you know. Having connections in the publishing industry is very helpful. But again, when you're going back to your goal of, am I trying to write a book or am I trying to be a best-selling author? And I think even if you don't say out loud, I want to be a best-selling author, there is that like dream of, I'm going to write a book and make $1 million. Like that's seems to like the yada, yada, yada in between. And, I bring this up a lot, and I hesitate to say it now because there's just been some love-hate relationship with Rachel Hollis in the last 12 months or whatever. I watched her speak one time when she was in Cedar Rapids and at the Women Lead Change conference. And she said that she was talking about writing a book and she was just about to release her second book at that time. It was like still on pre-order or something. Not her second book, but the one that was called Girl Stop Apologizing.
Yeah.
And she said that when people asked her about her book, they were like, wow, this is amazing. Your second book is doing so well. Congratulations. And I just called it a second book, even though I know the other side of the story. And the other side of the story is she was like, well, this is my 9th book. And which is why I said to you earlier, oh yeah, no, that's your goal for your 10th book.
Yes.
But she
Yes.
was like, people don't understand the path. And they really do believe, no matter how many times you tell somebody, they believe that you had something special and you just started off in here and now you're successful.
Yeah.
And even though we know that's not true.
And the biggest blessing, you talked about failures before, but it is the failures that help us actually get better. It's our mess ups, it's our screw ups. And, if we can stay the course, they're only going to help make us better.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's so hard. And especially, I'm sure when you're coaching, and I know you go through this with your clients, when people are in it, and I think that's when the coaching is really very easy to avoid and it's hard to take. When you're really in it, like whatever it is, some sort of a struggle or, circumstance that you have to live in, it is so hard to see the other side.
Yeah.
Somebody said something to me recently and I keep repeating it because it was so powerful the way they said it, but they were like, if you knew what was on the other side of your struggle, you would run to get through it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you would take on every ounce of beating up and battering you have to go through, and you would welcome it.
Yeah.
If you could just feel that piece of success on the other side. But instead we like butt heads with it. We know we're going to go through struggle until we're in it.
Yeah.
How do you approach that, like with your clients and with helping people through that? I mean, to me, that's the hard side of coaching. The easy side is motivating them, and inspiring them.
Yeah. So to me, in my book, I talk a lot about creating. So we know in a business, you have to have a business plan to be successful. There's not too many businesses that thrive without some type of plan. And so I use that same analogy with your life. But, so you have to have like a vision of what you want your life to look and feel and be. But I really zero it in is to why is that important? Because the vision will be there, but if you don't commit to why that is so important to you, you won't stick to your own vision. So what, it's kind of like a life motto, a life word sentence that inspires you that I'm going to do this no matter what. I feel called to empower people to create this life they dream of living, but it scares the heck out of them. They come up with all kinds of excuses and reasons, and they're really just fears.
Yeah.
And
everyone has them.
We all have them. I mean, we all have them. And so it's acknowledging them. And then the biggest part of that, so figuring out your why, figuring out your vision, it's really mastering your mindset. And when I say mastering, we are never going to master it. It's maybe another.
It's not a place you arrive to. Like,
right.
oh, now I have this. I will plug it in to my brain. I have
Yes.
a thing called mastery and I will do it.
It's more victory over your mindset because you catch yourself like this. Like last week was a really difficult week for me, and I was like, "What is wrong with me?"
Mm.
But I wasn't focusing in on my mindset, and I was letting all this craziness and this hate in this world can really wear on us. And so it's really like, what's my mind saying, and um, changing what you're thinking, changing your routine, doing something different to change your thoughts and not allowing your thoughts to take you down a path that is going to drain your energy,
Yeah.
and helping people really figure out what gives me energy and what drains my energy. That's things we do, things we think, people we hang out with
Mhm.
can.
I talk about energy as currency a lot. And I don't know where I subscribe to that as, but the time we spend on different thoughts and things that are holding us back, it really has to be challenged. Like you have
Yes.
to disrupt that time and say, because you can say very easily, every moment that I spend on this problem is a moment I'm not spending on the solution. Like the complaining, like when you talked about social work and working in social work, the constant complaining, what's the solution on the other side of that? Is that getting out of the industry altogether? Or is that changing it? And what does change look like? I mean, I can only imagine in the social work industry, change looks like decades.
Yeah.
What is that your life purpose? Is that what you're driven and committed to do? Or is it something else? You have to kind of decide. And that energy currency is, when you spend so much time complaining or letting something consume you, is every moment that you're not spending on something that helps you, right?
Right.
That's hard. It's hard to master. That's where I think, the right coaching or quote on your wall or
And
something.
it's all those things. I mean, it's truly creating habits or systems within your own house, in your own office or computer or car or wherever, to keep you grounded in what your why is. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. And that why thing, when I started as in like business and getting some, um, mindset coaching and different things when it first started, and they would talk about defining your why. And so people were always, scribbling down, writing all these things. And they would say, your why should make you cry. And it did. And then everybody in the room was like bawling. And I'm like, I mean, I just want to make a lot of money. Okay. Like I don't, I feel like I want a better car.
yeah,
So it wasn't, and I'm not a biological parent. I'm a step parent. So I was like, and they would all talk about, bettering their lives for their children. And I would always say, so when they're gone, then what? That was never on my radar because I don't have children to better lives for. So it's, it can be a difficult thing. I needed a lot of help to go through defining a why. And I didn't even know I'd done it until it really clicked.
yeah.
And it was hard. So I think Simon Sinek's books on Start with Why and Find Your Why are great. But I had to have somebody verbally walk me through it.
And I find a lot of people are terrified to even speak one out loud because
Well, yeah.
and it's a process. I always use like an onion. I usually, like when I speak or a meeting with a client on Zoom, I have an onion and just say, you got to peel it. And
Mhm.
and sometimes you got to put it down and walk away from it because it's making you cry. It's making you cry.
Mhm.
And sometimes that process, I know my why has probably took a year, and this year it even changed again. It morphed a little bit deeper.
Yeah, it evolves.
Yeah.
It becomes it starts as something almost like, I mean, almost arbitrary, and then it evolves to being something legacy
Mhm.
um, driven.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for me because my mindset would always say, well, who do you think you are? I
Yeah.
mean, who do you think you are that's the thing you want to do? And my coach was like, I mean, just, no, how many people, Kendra? I want to impact people. How many? Where are they? Like, what do they look like? Stop being wishy-washy about it.
Yeah.
But then I almost got too big because I said, I just got some coaching on this the other day. He said, why do you act like you're going to do something big? You're doing something big.
Mm.
And I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you keep saying, I'm going to change the world someday. He's like, why do you think you're not right now? Why don't you speak in present tense? And I'm like, well, because I haven't changed the world. And he's like, so in order for you to be successful, you got to get all 7.5 billion people. And I was like, yes, that's how I feel. And he was like, okay, bring it down, sis.
Yeah.
So we had to have, a good conversation about it. But it doesn't matter how, successful you are or how driven you are or, the perception. Everybody's got weird things going on in their mind, and it's helpful to have walk through. So what's your book called? And tell me I don't know when you go on your book tours, and doing all the signings and things that are not happening in 2020.
Yeah.
What do people get to know about your book, that would have them pick that up?
Well, it's called Finding Joy, Living an A+ Life in a C- World. And you can find it on my website or Amazon. Really, it's a story of divorce, my divorce, and how I had to, during that process, somebody asked me two powerful questions and they ticked me off, but they made me shift my mind. Everybody was helping me stay stuck, except this person helping me feel sorry for myself, revengeful, bitter. And this person asked me two questions that made me mad. But they shifted the way I thought because I had to answer them to actually begin my process of transformation. And when I was able to answer them, so those questions are in the book. And really looking back in my life, I see that if you don't have a strong foundation of who you are and what you stand for, your life will be like this.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, so it really helps you build a solid foundation. So, I mean, we're going to have, it doesn't prevent bad things from happening in your life, like pandemics or, illness or whatever, but it does help you create a strong foundation so that when we go through struggles, we don't bomb, we don't go down to an F life. And so, the subtitle is called Living an A+ Life in a C- World. And it's really, an A+ is not, you have everything. It's a mindset. It's what is your A+?
And what's funny, what you're reminding me of to think about is often our biggest struggles were once the answers to our prayers.
Yeah.
An ex-husband was once the love of our life. The job we hate, when we got that offer, was once the thing that changed us for the better. The business we wanted to create, that's now for me, it put me into a lot of debt and I struggled with my business for the longest time. But that was once like my biggest dream. So sometimes you have to go back and remember, what was it that I wanted when I started? And if you have a good solid why and a good solid foundation, like you said, it makes so much sense that you can go back to it. And then when you're struggling, get through it. And sometimes it's realizing that that wasn't the actual answer to your prayer, and it's okay to move on from it. And sometimes it's no, I have to rededicate myself to this job, to this business, to this marriage, to this relationship, to this, whatever that is. And either answer is okay, but if your why is good from the beginning, then you always have something to go back to. That's really great information.
Yeah.
I love that.
Thank you.
And it's, I think every business owner listening will know exactly what we're talking about. And the inspiration, I think, with you is to help people get past that, living that kind of default life, to something that's inspiring or purpose driven, or following your dreams. But that it's not stepping stones to get there, but everybody says it's worth it on the other end. So like I said before, if you knew, you would run through that fire. You would run through it, and you would embrace every lesson. Because I mean, like you said earlier, there's more in those lessons. There's more lessons in the failures, unfortunately.
And success does not happen overnight. Success is a process with any entrepreneur, any person in any career. It is a process. And if you stay focused on where you're going instead of the struggle, it's a mindset. Once again, we could sit and think about 2020 and how that impacted a lot of small business owners. And do you quit or do you?
Yeah, do you quit? Do you pivot? Do you change? And then how does that change things for the future? I mean, I know I'm sure it did with your business. I'm sure you met everybody in person for the most part before the pandemic. And now these virtual meetings are just part of what we do.
Yeah.
And isn't it nice to not have to like drive somewhere?
Yeah. Yeah. So
I
there's,
love
yeah,
it.
there's bonuses, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you can still meet and there's a blizzard going on outside the window, as is our situation right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a networking meeting this morning that certainly would have been canceled had we only had an in-person option, but we were able to still meet this morning all from home. And, there's a lot of, even in the bad, those good things come out of it. And everybody's pivot's going to look different too. Well, I really enjoyed this conversation. I'm excited to learn more about your session and about, really what we saw that was so different that's never been at our conference before. We're focused toward business owners and entrepreneurs or people that work with business owners and entrepreneurs. So, a lot of coaches and, business services and things like that. But we really want to attract people that maybe want to make that decision for themselves and want to not feel alone in making those decisions. And that's what we really saw in your workshop was, really grounding yourself in that, like, this is, and how to get through that. Because when you do make the decision to leave the corporate world, it gets gritty immediately. And everybody knows it. That's why you're scared of it. You're not scared of step 10. You're scared of step 2.
Yes. Yes.
And you should be. I mean, I won't sugarcoat it, but step 10 is so worth it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. I'm excited for everybody to get to know you and, to bring a little bit of Ames over here to Cedar Rapids. You can wear your red and gold if you want.
I might.
I mean, it'll clash with the rose gold. So I'm just,
It will add color.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you so much. We will say goodbye to the podcast and